Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, new statewide research shows what issues Arizona voters say that they want leaders to prioritize. Also tonight, a closer look at a state Supreme Court ruling on clergy members who learn of child abuse in the context of a religious confession. And an investigation looks at why fewer of the state's growing number of graduates are meeting proficiency standards. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The Center for the Future of Arizona is out with its 2026 Arizona Voters Agenda. It's a nonpartisan research effort designed to reveal the issues that Arizona voters deem most important and want to see addressed by state and local leaders. Joining us now is Sybil Francis, President and CEO of the Center for the Future of Arizona. Good to see you again.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for being here. All right, Arizona Voters Agenda. Give me a better definition.
So every 2 years during the election cycle, we do a survey of Arizona voters to find out what's on their minds. And really the objective is to cut through all the political noise, hot button issues, wedge issues, and really get to the heart of what matters to Arizonans. That's really what we're about at Center for the Future of Arizona. We center the voices of Arizonans and really reflect that back to the media and others so that we can better understand.
Sounds like a framework for what people really want leaders to address.
Absolutely.
And you got 6 topics here, and we're going to go at each one by one. But in general, were the topics chosen because of immediacy, importance, relevance, what?
We have a deep bench of public opinion survey research going over 2 decades, so we have some sense of what is important to Arizonans. And then, of course, we also are paying attention to what are some of the issues of the day that are important. But it's not a horse race poll. It's not about who's ahead, who's behind, who's going to win, who's going to lose. It's really going to the heart of the issues.
Let's talk about some of these topics here. We'll start with affordability. The cost of living, everyone agrees, cost of living is getting worse.
Absolutely. So nearly 50% of Arizonans told us that they're having difficulty meeting their monthly expenses. Housing certainly comes to the top of that list. What's really interesting is 90% of Arizonans told us that they believe that affordability is a problem. So the 90% are understanding that the rest of the state is suffering. And
inflation was listed as well as a problem. And again, all demos, Republican, Democrat, old and young.
Yes, this is one of the things that we really focus on is where do we have agreement among Republicans, Democrats, and independents. So to be on the voters' agenda, we actually have to have 50% agreement across the board.
How do you explain, though, for the economy getting worse, most folks thought that, but only 37% of Republicans, with all that going on, 37% of Republicans did not think their economy was necessarily getting worse. How does that square?
Well, we have close to 50% who say they're having trouble meeting monthly expenses, and to some extent it's also how people view their lives, I suppose.
Yeah. Housing, majority say it's a problem. I thought this was interesting. Everyone agreed with the idea of putting smaller homes on bigger lots.
Yes, there was a lot of agreement on the need for more housing and different types of housing. So a lot of flexibility in terms of how we build that housing. You're probably going to ask me that at the same time, people do want some local control.
Yes.
And so I think one of the things we're trying to bring to the fore on this topic and others like it is we often cast issues as black and white, yes or no, build or don't build, but it's really important to understand that we need housing and yes, we need local input. So it's up to leaders to figure out, well, how do we meet both of those needs?
Yeah, without the black and white dichotomy.
Exactly.
I thought it was interesting as well that as far as housing, almost every demographic wanted to stay here. It's so bad that they want to leave, except, of course, for the 18 to 29-year-olds. And I think all 18 to 29-year-olds are kind of looking around anyway.
There's some of that, but we also see that in the more middle-aged group as well, that costs of living is making people think a little bit more about possibly leaving the state because of the increased cost of living.
You asked about water, and I got to tell you, those results that, as far as what I saw, there is no confidence at all that we're dealing with water in the right way.
Yeah, we've been asking about water for some years, but it's always been a concern because Arizonans understand how important water is to our state. But this is the first time when we asked to pick one issue, their top issue of concern for Arizona, it was water.
Isn't that interesting? And all parties, all demos.
Yes.
I mean, this was an alarm bell, I would think, for leaders. People realize what's going on out there.
They do realize it. They want leaders to take more action. In our next survey, we're doing one more survey before the election. We're going to be asking about whether or not Arizonans feel leaders are communicating enough about this issue, because there could be some misunderstanding as well about what's going on behind the scenes versus what Arizonans know leaders are doing.
It's a complicated
It's very
topic.
complicated.
Yeah. Immigration, clear path, an easy path to citizenship. That was a biggie. That had a lot of support.
It did have a lot of support. And, you know, we've known for a long time that Arizonans wanted to see comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway to citizenship. Excuse me. But we wanted to dig a little bit deeper and ask more questions about immigration to get a better picture. And it's very clear that Arizonans want to see clearer pathways for people coming to this country towards citizenship, as long as they meet requirements.
Indeed. And to that end, it sounds like people want to see the laws enforced, immigration laws enforced, but fairly and respectfully.
Yes. They want to see border control. They want to see a border that works for commerce. They want a clearer pathway to citizenship. They want more humane treatment of people who may be here illegally. So I would say, for lack of a better term, it's very pragmatic and balanced.
Yeah.
It's not, again, those extremes of, you know, open the borders or crack down on illegal immigration. It's a much more sophisticated view that the electorate has, and I think this again goes back to this idea of leadership. We have this complex situation. We know that what Arizonans think, we need leaders to be able to step up and address those issues.
I know you like to focus on things where people agree,
Yes.
but on elections, big disagreements between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans see all sorts of problems, Democrats not so much.
Yes, so, you know, as you said, we really try to focus on agreement because we want to highlight those areas where we think leaders can come together to solve problems together. On elections, the good news is we did a survey earlier in the spring that showed that we have a great amount of agreement on the importance of elections, on the importance of accuracy, transparency, security, and those sorts of things. But we do have big gaps between Democrats, independents, and then Republicans in terms of how they see those things. So we often find majorities, for example, think our election system is secure. But if you look at the views of different partisan divisions, then you see that Republicans are less confident about that. And that gets repeated in a number of issues.
Last question before you go here on education. It seems like everyone agrees. Everyone wants kids educated. Everyone wants better education out there. It's a major topic, a lot of agreement, and yet it's still a major issue.
You know, this is probably the best example of how we focus on hot button issues, wedge issues. You know, we focus a lot on, you know, vouchers and these sorts of questions. And no doubt that's an important issue, but we're disregarding all sorts of other things that families want to hear about. They want their kids to learn how to read and be able to do math. They want them getting more career skills in high school, preparing for jobs after. They want their kids to go on to post-secondary education. We really need to be focused as a state on how do we get those things done.
All right, how do we find out more? Where can we see the results of this?
Go to our website, arizona.future.org.
One more time?
arizonafuture.org.
All right, Sybil Francis, Center for the Future of Arizona. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Ted. Yeah.
I really do enjoy volunteering. I like to think that I have made a difference. That's enough. I don't need to be patted on the back. I've included my PBS station in my future plans. It's not a big gift, but something that will help them.
For more information about including Arizona PBS in your future plans, visit azpbs.org/giving.
Every little bit helps. If we can do a whole lot of little bits, then we've done a great service.
Arizona PBS wants to wish a very happy birthday to our Arizona PBS Kids Club members that are having a birthday. Thanks so much for being a part of the Arizona PBS Kids Club. And if you'd like to see your name here during your birthday month, get a grown-up's help to visit azpbs.org/family to learn about our Arizona PBS family membership. So happy birthday from all of us at Arizona PBS.
How much money are we talking about?
A lot.
Nothing succeeds like excess.
I would do anything for this family. It's the stuff of dreams.
I'll make him sorry.
Where are they?
Everyone said we couldn't lose.
Not on our side.
I'm warning you.
Sunday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
A recent state Supreme Court decision ruled that clergy members who learn of incidents of child abuse by way of religious confession are not required to report that information to law enforcement. It was a unanimous decision that overruled an appeals court ruling. For more on this, we welcome attorney Stephen Montoya, a partner at Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This was this a surprise to you? Because what I said in the intro is kind of the basic attack on this, but that is what we're talking about here.
It was a surprise to me. I'm not surprised that some of the justices would have gone along with the exemption and the tradition of allowing clerics, priests, and so-called self-appointed clerics and priests to place themselves above the law. There is a long tradition of that. It's a bad tradition. It's a tradition that is rapidly changing. The penitent priest, the penitent priest privilege is very old. It goes back to the Middle Ages, and so does clerical abuse of children go back to the Middle Ages. Over the centuries, it's been reformed, and now there are exceptions to the rule that allow clerics and lawyers and doctors and teachers to report potential abuse to law enforcement agencies in order to protect children.
But this case involved the church, in this case LDS Church,
Yes.
but other faiths, almost every other faith involved, supported the church in this decision with the idea of First Amendment rights, protection with your religion here. If I confess to you something and our religion says that confession is part of repentance and all other things involved in the religion, the court says you don't have to go down a path. I mean, does that make sense to you?
No, it doesn't make sense to me, and moreover, it is not required by the First Amendment. There is no adjudication by the Supreme Court of Case recognizing that rule. To the contrary, the rule is being repudiated all over the country because of the pervasiveness of child abuse. And Ted, what is more important than protecting our children? This religious doctrine that is riddled full of exceptions, and in fact, much to the credit of the LDS Church, they changed the rule. They're not crazy, they're good people. After this problem came to their attention, they changed the rule. Now confessions to LDS bishops or priests, they're not confidential if holding it confidential would further or threaten the welfare of children or anyone's physical welfare. So even the LDS Church has changed and said, hey, this is not an absolute privilege. A few churches haven't changed. One of them is my own church. I'm a Catholic. And I am against the penitent privilege. The church has to obey the law like everybody else.
And yet the court says it infringes on the right to exercise religion. You're obligated as clergy to report abuse if it's reasonable and necessary within the concepts of the religion. That's a unanimous decision by the
Yeah, I know, and they're unanimously wrong. And that's also really, whenever you have, Ted, you've been around for a long time. There are very few unanimous decisions of any importance. Brown versus Board of Education was decided a long time ago. That was a unanimous decision. The fact that this decision was unanimous suggests that the court is really marching to the same tune, and that is not a good thing if you're marching in the wrong direction. This was a bad rule, but the court in the very first page 3 times said that this conclusion is mandated by the First Amendment. But the entirety of the court's opinion doesn't cite a controlling Supreme Court case. It's called Personnel Director versus Smith. It was decided in 1990, authored by a very conservative justice, very famous. That would be Justice Scalia. And Justice Scalia ruled for the court in that case that if there's a rule that applies to everyone there are no religious exceptions to that rule. And that would be especially true in reference to a criminal law designed to protect children.
Then why did the state Supreme Court say that the courts themselves cannot, and this is a quote, cannot determine confidential and reasonable situations within the concepts and the confines of a religious exercise?
Well, because they're claiming that that would entwine the court into religious doctrine unnecessarily. But there's a way around that, Ted. You cut the Gordian knot like Alexander the Great did with a knife. You just say, hey, guess what? This exemption isn't required by the First Amendment, so we're not going to recognize it. And the Arizona legislature should overrule the exemption or create exceptions to it like a lot of other states have.
So, last question here. Does this put clergy above the law in Arizona?
Absolutely. If you don't report, you could be found guilty of a felony. If a priest or a self-proclaimed cleric doesn't report, he's above the law. He's immune. And people declare themselves as priests all the time.
But before we go, I did want to talk about that because the court says we can't get involved with religious exercise, repentance, and how that particular religion sees that sort of thing. Well, the court's going to determine if the Church of Ted is a real church, isn't it?
No.
It's not going to do that.
No, it's not.
So the Church of Ted can just go walking around doing anything I want.
Yeah, and in fact, another case that was decided just a week after this case sounds like that exact thing happened. Two guys created their own church, and they were applying the cleric penitent privilege to them too. They ultimately concluded it did not apply, but they did say they had a valid church. If it's just ridiculous. No one is above the law in the United States under our Constitution, including priests and clerics.
Stephen Montoya, Lucero, and Petrova, the Church of Ted does not exist, just so you know.
I'm reassured by that.
As are we all. Thank you, Steve.
Bye. Thank you.
A new investigative report finds that there's a growing gap between the number of students who graduate each year and the number who meet academic proficiency standards. Policymakers and educators say that this gap represents a public education system that's failing to set students up for success. Now, the report was filed by The Beam, which is part of the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism at ASU's Cronkite School of Journalism. And we welcome Katie Wilcox and Evan Weiloge, both professors of practice at the Howard Center. Good to have you both here. Thank you for joining us. Katie, we'll start with you. The focus of the investigation was what?
Yeah, so the focus of this investigation was to really try to identify where our students are falling behind and what are some of those reasons. And as we started to uncover this, we started to see this kind of secondary problem that a lot of schools are still getting A letter grades even when the majority of their students aren't passing state standardized tests, which is itself its own controversy. So we sort of looked at both why are our students falling behind, what are some of the drivers of that, and then how is the state dealing with it?
Yeah, I was going to say improving graduation rates, that's good, but it's not being matched by these standardized tests. That's not so good. What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the right question. I mean, we all agree we want to see more students graduating every year, and we've seen that number tick up. So over the past several years, it's been a slow increase, and we're gauging against the dip and the decline in education that took place during COVID. But since then, we've also seen that those proficiency numbers have bounced around a little bit, but they've remained very low.
And it sounds like from your report, the school grade letter system, the letter grade system for schools,
yes,
plays a big part.
It could, right? And that's the thing that policymakers are really trying to balance here, right? They want these A through F letter grades. You'll see them when you drive around town. You'll see a big A on the side of a school, for example. They want that to be not just an accountability measure, but also an incentive tool. And they want to say, okay, well, here's where you're not doing as well, and here's where you're doing much better. But some of the controversy that's playing out right now is this question of, well, who should really get those A's?
Yeah, well, and I know from back in the day when this first started, the idea was, yes, success in terms of proficiency, but also if you can show some improvement, that also deserves a better grade. Is that what's going on here?
It's part of the calculation. If you go onto the website for ADE, the Arizona Department of Education, or the SBE, the School Board, State Board of Education,
yeah,
thanks. You can see that calculation that they use to determine the letter grades. And there are a bunch of factors that go into it, and one of them is growth. So we also all agree that we want to see students growing every year. So even if a student comes in a few grades behind where they're supposed to be, if they can, be brought up, then that's worth something. But these students often are still way behind when they take those standardized tests.
I was going to say, they can be brought up to a level that still means you are not proficient.
That's the problem, and I think one of the things that we found and what I, really caught my eye here is that there's this huge income gap when you're looking at proficiency standards. And so that's where people have said, okay, well, if we're really going to measure growth, we know that students who are coming in, especially from high income, low income homes, are going to have this much higher barriers to climb over, right? So if you're living in poverty, if you're a very low income household, you maybe don't have access to tutors. You maybe don't always come to school fed, right? You might not just have some of the things that other families have. So how do we account for those gaps? Well, let's try to measure schools by how well they're getting their students caught up, even if they don't quite pass the test by the end of 11th grade.
Yeah, I think you got 80% graduation rate for low-income students, but only half meet proficiency standards.
It's less than that.
It's less than half.
So it's about 20% are meeting those proficiency standards, which is half compared to, it's half as well as the other students.
And there's talk of revising the school letter grade system, true?
Yeah, they are currently meeting pretty regularly. They've met a few times during the summer, and there's going to be a meeting next week. We'll be paying close attention, but they're discussing possible ways to adjust that calculation. And they'd like for those letter grades to be a better reflection. And at the same time, just like what Katie was saying, we don't want this to be a letter grade system that only reflects the household income of the area.
Oh, and that's what, as your reporting showed, critics are saying, yeah, this is going to hurt the low-income students here if you revise this too much.
The big criticism of this is that, we talked about this earlier, right? In Arizona, you have a system where enrollment determines funding.
Yes.
And so if your letter grade gets worse, do students leave? And if students leave, do you lose even more funding? So it could create this cycle of even worse outcomes for already poor performing schools.
And I was going to ask, how important are these school letter grades? And apparently, in terms of funding, it's a little bit complicated, but it does come back to funding, doesn't it?
It does. And you talk to your average parent out there, and they're aware of those letter grades, and they don't have the time and energy to sit around and look at all of the various component pieces that go into that letter grade. And so they think that when they see that A or a B, that means something. But in fact, that, those calculations are pretty complicated, and we have heard that the schools and the districts know how to try to get their score just above the threshold so that they can get that A or get that B.
Yeah, playing the system here. What, real quickly, as far as education officials and even non-education officials, what have you heard? Have you asked? What are you hearing?
Absolutely. The main takeaway here is that there's agreement. We want students to do better, and we really shouldn't have different standards depending on how much money you come from, right? If you're a student living in this zip code or this zip code, shouldn't you still have opportunities to a great education? And that ends up becoming the real question of how do we get to that point?
Yeah, as long as people know the question is there. Real quickly, where can we find more information on this?
Thebeam.org.
Thebeam.org.
That's it, thebeam.org?
Thebeam.org.
Very
right
efficient,
there.
very efficient. Good to have you both here. Great work. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
When you want to discover more, experience